All right, so here's what we've got going on. In the last video, we discovered this line over here to the passenger side head, the one you see me wiggling there. That is leaking from the snap to connect fitting and pouring oil everywhere. Now in that video, a couple of you guys commented, hey Blake, don't forget about the plug. And you're right. Underneath the high pressure oil pump here, there is a plug that is known for leaking. Ford calls it the non-serviceable plug. You can service it if yours is leaking. You don't have to replace the pump like Ford says you do, but I've crawled down in here with lights and mirrors, and at least in my case right now, that's not my leak. We don't have to mess with it. What we are gonna do, presuming I don't fall off the truck here, is we're gonna replace this line here going to our passenger side head. We're gonna replace this line here going to our driver's side head. And we're gonna get rid of these snap to connect fittings. And then we're gonna install a high pressure oil crossover line. This line right here you can see is the high pressure line to the passenger side head we found leaking in the last video. This line here in the wire loom is the high pressure line to the driver's side head. Don't think it's leaking yet, but we're going to go ahead and replace it because we're going with an aftermarket line that gets rid of these snap to connect fittings and goes to a standard JIC fitting, which is a much more reliable way to go about this. And then we're also going to be putting in a high pressure oil crossover line. If you look right there at the end of my finger, that plug, and then there's a corresponding one over here on the passenger side head. Those plugs are for the oil galley, the same galley these lines up here feed. The theory is by installing that crossover line, it's going to help balance out the pressure in the high pressure oil system a little bit better. Should make the truck idle a little more smoothly and possibly be a little bit quieter. If you go to a parts store and buy a factory style replacement line, this is what you're going to get. This is the one for the passenger side head. It uses these snap to connect style fittings just like came out of the factory, and it's kind of expensive. This line is about $100. If you're broke down and need it right now, that's a great option. But if you don't need it right now and have time to order, these are the way to go. This is what we're going to be putting in. It's a JIC standard hydraulic fitting that adapts to an O-ring boss going into the head, passenger side, driver side, and then the crossover to tie the two back galleys together. These are a lot more reliable. They're a lot simpler. They don't depend on those little clips to not leak. And in the event that you blow one, any hydraulic shop should be able to make this. I'm going to start over here with my passenger side line because it's the one I've had off a handful of times now, dealing with this leak. Getting it out is pretty straightforward. Just unthread it. And typically, once it breaks loose, you can spin it out by hand without much trouble. So let's look right down here, and I'll show you kind of what we're dealing with. You can see there's our driver side fitting at the front of the high pressure pump with the crow's foot on it. There's our passenger side fitting at the rear of the high pressure pump. I got this one loosened. I'm using like 6 inches of extension and a crow's foot. I could remove the 2 intake tubes and the spider and make a ton more room. We might end up very well doing that when it comes to doing those back ones because we can see the fitting there. I can't really see the fitting over there, but kind of, so that might come out. I'm just trying to disassemble as little as I have to right now. Kind of tight down in here, so I'm using the crow's foot just as a very short little wrench after I got it broke loose to work this the rest of the way out. All right, so here's our passenger side line. It's gonna leak down in there everywhere. It already is. I gotta clean it up anyway, so what's it matter? All right, and there is our driver's side line out. There's a spring out of the other one. Got a little spring, got a little plunger on the back. These are O-ring boss fittings. I hope that's focusing, but if you're not familiar with these, You'll screw the entire fitting in until this washer is almost snug. Then you can rotate the fitting however it needs to rotate for the hose to line up correctly and not bind or hit anything. Then tighten down this little nut, and that little nut is what's going to put the pressure on that washer and actually do the sealing. The straight fitting goes in the pump at the front for the driver's side head, and then the 90-degree fitting goes in the head to connect the line to. And the reason for that is because that 90-degree fitting, if you try to put it in the pump, it will not be able to go. It hits the reservoir and you cannot install it. All right, good, 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 good. Let's start it and see what happens. All right, no leaks. We got our two new oil lines in. We got our driver's side here. You can see it routes the other way now. Instead of coming down here, it goes up through there. And we got our new passenger side line in. I did pull this intake tube because our next stop is that little plug right there. We got to remove that plug on the passenger side and the corresponding plug there on the driver's side, and then we're going to connect those two heads together with this high pressure oil crossover line right here. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. You're just going to double check, make sure all of our fittings are tight, everything is routed well, nothing is rubbing, nothing is hitting stuff it shouldn't be. There's our crossover line going under the turbo. All that looks good. All right, let's put the intake back together and start it up. So I let it run for a little bit, move the truck over here. I don't see anything leaking, fresh anyway, but there is a lot of residual oil down in there from where it was leaking previously, and then the little bit that came out of those lines while I was changing stuff. So I've had the high pressure oil crossover lines on the truck for about 800 miles now, and a lot of that time has been towing and hauling and moving stuff. And overall, I really can't tell you if it made any kind of a difference or not. I've seen some stuff and read some things where they've shown how it does reduce pressure spikes in the system. That's kind of always a good thing, but as far as what you're going to notice from having one installed, I can't tell a big difference on this truck. Maybe that's just me. Your mileage may vary. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to like the next few I got coming. We got some really good mechanic content coming up soon, so subscribe if you haven't. Thank you for watching, and more later.